When Prabhupada got his stroke, it was Memorial Day weekend, and Memorial Day weekend in New York, everyone leaves New York City. It's like this huge exodus. And I could see Prabhupada couldn't function, it was serious. So I called my family doctor, but he was out of town. And, you just get the answering service. And I asked other devotees, anyone know any doctor? And nobody knew. And I was calling. I just took the phone book. I started making random calls. Whomever I called, everyone was out of town for the weekend. Everybody goes. At least in those days, I don't know now. And I'm just calling and calling, and it's hard enough to get anyone to come to a residence anyway. And I actually could not get any doctor. And, it was either bringing Prabhupada to a hospital. I didn't want to do that. And ultimately, I just got some kind of doctor's referral service, municipal thing. And eventually I was able to get through them some doctor. And finally a doctor came. And he was this little old, I guess maybe Jewish guy. And he comes in. Of course, we didn't ask him to take his shoes off. But there we're all standing in our we used to wear these jeans and T-shirts and barefoot. And, and he walks in, there's no furniture, and just a carpet, and there's this old Indian man. He couldn't figure what's going on here. And there's Prabhupada very sick, and everyone's walking on Hare Krishna, Krishna. He just couldn't understand. So it took him a time just to understand what's going on here, and then what to speak of examining Prabhupada. And he was a very kind of boisterous type of person, and he examines Prabhupada, and then, with the stethoscope, this, that. And afterwards he goes outside, and so we asked him, so what's wrong? He said, well, I think the old man, he prays too much. So, well, oh yeah, okay. So, he's just praying there. He's just sitting there praying all day, and he's got to get out. He's got to do some exercise. And Prabhupada could hear him from, the other room. Yep, he's got to do something. He's got to exercise. Go for a walk. Got to do something. Go out in the morning. Take a walk. Go to the park. So, anyway, and then he just left. And this guy, that's all he could say. So eventually we did have to I did put Prabhupada in the hospital. And then was a whole thing. And then Prabhupada came out of the hospital. Then we took him to a house in New Jersey we had rented by the seashore. Anyway, then Prabhupada did recover sufficiently. And then Prabhupada announced that now I will take a morning walk. He said, that doctor, he said something very good, very valuable. We all laughed because we thought the guy was a nut. And he said, Prabhupada said, no, he has given very good instruction. I will take that up. And Prabhupada then proceeded to take a morning walk, and Prabhupada always took that morning walk. I mean, no matter what his condition, what his health was, or whatever. I mean, I know stories of Prabhupada when Prabhupada was in Switzerland and it was snowing out. He was in a hotel. Shamsundar took him to St. Moritz. That's a whole story. But Prabhupada couldn't go outside for his morning walk, so he took his morning walk in the corridors of the hotel, walking, and just as if he was outside. He was just walking and walking. I mean, I know when there was an automobile accident we had in Mauritius, and we were all had been injured, even Prabhupada. The next morning, Prabhupada rang his bell. We were all aching and paining, and Prabhupada, he was injured even more, and on his leg and so on. He rang his bell. Where you going? Morning walk. And we were like hobbling, and but Prabhupada went on his morning walk. And Prabhupada was also feeling, I mean, he was much older than we were. Because, you feel when there was a big tension like that, you feel the next day, all that adrenaline, it gives you a lot of pain. So but Prabhupada went on his morning walk. So Prabhupada followed that instruction.
My wife and I used to run a little store across the street called the Surabi store. And I did get to do a little bit for Srila Prabhupada by making him dobs for his afternoon refreshment when he woke up. So the last year that Srila Prabhupada was here with us in Los Angeles, GBC came to another devotee and I named Bashkara and asked us if we would like the devotional service of being Srila Prabhupada's bodyguard. They had used us a lot in the past for taking sums of money to the bank like that. And for 4 or 5 years I had carried a weapon all the time because of the rascals and things that had gone on in New Vrindavan like that. So they knew I was experienced with this, and one boy had done it the year before, tried to do it 24 hours a day. They didn't think that was appropriate. So they asked us if 3 of us would split the 24 hours up. So about the middle of the second week of doing this devotee Bashkara, he and we were hippies together. We had joined the movement together. All of our service seemed to coincide together. We were sitting having lunch, and he was saying, did you notice Srila Prabhupada, he does the same thing at the same time every day? And I goes, yeah, it's amazing. You can almost set your watch. He goes, well, do you know, someone gave him a brand new pair of slippers the other day. And all he wears them is from his room to the curtain at the temple room, and he takes them off. After class, he puts them on and wears them up and takes them off at his door every day. And I goes, yeah. He goes, well, he says, they're brand new, and I kind of looked at them last night, and I got the model number and the manufacturer's name, and I bought another pair just exactly like them. Well, what are you going to do with them? His feet are not the same size as your feet. And he goes, well, tomorrow morning, he had the morning, I had the evening. He said, tomorrow morning when he goes down for class, he's going to wear his slippers down. I'm going to exchange them for my slippers. And then he'll wear my slippers back upstairs, and I will exchange them again. And I'll have a pair of slippers that Srila Prabhupada wore. Maybe just one time, but Srila Prabhupada will have worn my slippers. So I'm thinking, wow, that's a good idea. I said, so tomorrow I'm going to go out and buy a pair of slippers, and we'll do the same thing the next day. So the next day we do our service, we get together at lunch, and I says, well, did you get your slippers? He goes, yeah. I says, well, I says, where do I go buy mine? He says, you shouldn't do it. And I'm thinking, yeah, you got your slippers. So he says, no, he says, let me tell you what happened. He says, Srila Prabhupada put his slippers on in the morning, and he came downstairs, he took them off at the door at the temple room. I exchanged them. After class, Srila Prabhupada came back out and put his slippers on, my slippers. He wore them upstairs, and he wore them right into his room. He never took them off at the door. I'm going, really? What did you do? And he says, well, I stood there chanting japa thinking, what am I going to do now? He says, I was there, he says, about 5 minutes, and he says, this sannyasi came down, and he says, is your name Bhaskara? And he goes, yes. And he says, Srila Prabhupada has a message for you. He says, he wishes to thank you very much for the new slippers. And you may keep the old slippers. But most importantly, he said it is not nice to play tricks on the spiritual master.
So we were sitting there next to the cooker. At that point, we had just two, those gas Indian burners had 2 flames in the gas bottle, and we would make a bucket of coal fire to do his chapatis, because they would come out better on that. Sat down, had the tiffin with all the spices and all the vegetables. Prabhupada sat down. In the meantime, he just kept casually talking to Bhagaji in Hindi. And so I had the tiffin. He put the spice in, this spice in, that spice in, and this vegetable in, this vegetable in. And he looked at Bhagaji and he said, so simple, still they cannot do. And then we just sat there and he was chatting with Bhagaji. And so as he was chatting, Palika was concerned that it was too hot. So she would turn the burner down and he would chat, and he'd look and Prabhupada would turn it back up. Didn't say anything and chat. And then 3 minutes went by and Palika would turn it down again. And this happened 3 times. And he turned down. He goes, Hari Baba, why are you messing? So, we kind of just stood back. And then he looked at Bhagaji and he said, these 2 burners, he said, I can make, he said, in 45 minutes, I can make full prasad for 100 people. Bhagaji looked and said, impossible. And Prabhupada said, I will bet you. And Bhagaji said, yeah, khichdi. And Prabhupada said, no, full prasad in 45 minutes. And they started speaking in Hindi then again. And Bhagaji said, impossible. And Prabhupada said, I will bet you 1 lakh of rupees. And Bhagaji started to laugh, and he said, Prabhupada, if I win or lose, you will take it anyway. And then he started to laugh, and then he just stood up without another word and said, it's finished. And then he walked out, and the kind of energy just went right back with him, right out the door. So that was my first time, him coming into the kitchen and cutting up and speaking.
I was cooking the milk sweets for the day, this late at night. There was one other devotee and they were washing the pots, and I was cooking the milk sweets. And Prabhupada hadn't been eating much for a few days. I think he was all sick. And then suddenly Harikesh ran into the kitchen. He said, Prabhupada wants to eat right now. Like 10 o'clock at night. Very unusual. Something like that. He said he wants khichdi. Khichdi. I mean, he said he wants it before, I think he gave 30 minutes. It must be ready by such and such a time. We put everything down and all together, 3 of us, really try to get it together to get that khichdi ready for Prabhupada. Rushing. And it was like 2 minutes late. Harikesh ran up the stairs, and then about 5 minutes later he came down and he said, I'm finished. He didn't say nothing, he just said, I'm finished. Prabhupada said you were too late. It's too late. He wanted it by 10:30, it was like maybe 5 minutes late. He said, take it. You're teaching many lessons, always be on time. Prabhupada was, generally speaking, very like that, always on time. And we weren't trained like that, we weren't so much, but he was teaching that, don't be late, everything should be on time.
And in the course of moving the deities, I believe each man 2 per deity, I was following. One of them knocked, the curtains were closed, we were behind adjusting the deities, and one of the persons somehow or another inadvertently knocked one of these columns with their elbow. And in as fast as an accident happens in an automobile going 70 miles an hour, everything slowed down into slow motion. And I remember watching this column go out with the speed of lightning. Srila Prabhupada moved all of the paraphernalia with his right hand off the bottom granite step, stepped up with his right foot on the first step, his left foot on the second step, grabbed one column, this huge column, the column was at least 6 to 8 inches in diameter, with his right hand, and Radharani's hand with his left hand. And I saw on his brow little beads of perspiration, the first time I had ever seen him perspire. And this was such a chivalrous thing that Srila Prabhupada did that I understood what the rasa of chivalry was. And he had that in protecting Radharani. That's one example of Srila Prabhupada exhibiting a very personal rasa with Krishna, actually saving Radharani from disaster and exhibiting superhuman strength and the alacrity of the movement of the mind. It couldn't have been faster.